Lesson about faith and science, we particularly want to think about Christianity and about the history of science, because all cultures, as they've got more advanced, have tried to do science. Okay? Some of them have been better than others, but actually something very special happened around 400 years ago. It's like science ignited. Okay? And from then on, we've never looked back. But that happened in Christian Europe. That's where it happened. So again, you might come across people who will say to you that, oh, you either believe in Christianity or you believe in science. That's actually quite strange, because of all the cultures that have lived in all the history of the world, around the world, there's only one culture where science ignited, and that was the Christian culture. I want you to imagine that you've got all the boys and girls in the school like playing football, okay? But one person can kick the ball 60 yards, okay? And no other person in the school can kick the ball that far. And that person has got some special boots on, okay? Different to everyone else's boots. What conclusion might we come up with about why that person can kick the ball further? What might we conclude?
Those boots were better.
Those boots are better. Okay? What we wouldn't naturally think is, oh, he's just better at kicking and those boots actually get in the way. It might just be true, but it'd be an amazing coincidence that the person who could kick the ball furthest and who had the different boots, actually those boots weren't helping him at all. The absolute obvious conclusion is those boots help him kick further. And so the real obvious conclusion of history, which has nothing to do with faith, of history, is that actually if science has only taken off in the Christian culture, then maybe it's because it's in the Christian culture. I don't know how much history you know, but you might have heard of a person called Galileo. He was an amazing scientist, okay? And he was the first person to actually publicly say that the Earth revolves around the Sun. Other people had thought it, but weren't sure, weren't quite. He had the confidence and the science to go, it does. That goes against our experience, doesn't it? Because it doesn't feel like I'm whizzing around at 48,000 miles an hour, or whatever I'm doing, around the centre of the galaxy. It feels like I'm stationary. And we talk, don't we, about the sun rising and the sun setting. Even though now we know he was right, we don't go, oh, look, the Earth's just revolved a bit. We talk about the sun rising and the sun setting, because that's what it looks like. And also, some people have got into the bad habit of thinking the Bible was literally true about what it said in everything. And as we were looking in the first lesson, that's not true. It's about why. Okay? So some people had problems with Galileo. And in fact, actually, some of the people high up in the church told him to stop saying that the Earth revolved around the sun. And they were wrong. They got it wrong. Okay? But that's it. They got it wrong once, 400 years ago. Before then and after then, the church has always promoted science as a good thing. It was Christian Europe that created universities so that people could learn more and more and more. The church isn't against people growing in knowledge and growing in science, but we got one thing wrong. But you will still hear people telling you, oh, look what the church did to Galileo. Okay? We made a mistake. I hope you never get detention in year 8 in your school for being naughty in your big school. Okay? But if you do, I hope you don't go for a job interview when you're 30 and they go, yes, we would have given you the job, but actually you got detention when you were 12, so we're not. And you'd be going, when can we forget about when I got it wrong in year 12? And it's the same with science, okay? The church got it wrong about Galileo 40 years ago. Okay, let's move on. So, let's think then about what we need to be able as a culture to grow in science. Okay? First of all, we need there to be laws. Okay? And in thinking through these things, we're trying to see how actually what we believe, our religion, actually affects our ability to think in a scientific way. Okay? It's not obvious, but what I'm going to try and show you is that how we believe about faith affects how we believe, how we think about science. Okay? So we need there to be laws. Okay? If I drop something on the floor, and most of the time I drop this pen, it falls on the floor, but sometimes it goes up in the air. Whoa! It's very hard to find a law if sometimes it does different things. Okay? But there does seem to be, in this case, a law of gravity, and it always happens. If it didn't, we can't find laws. Lots of religions before Christianity, pagan religions, believed in lots of different gods. They lived in Mount Olympus or Asgard or different places, and we were just an accident. Okay? But if you believe that, say, thunder and lightning happen because Thor is working on his anvil with his hammer, that's what the Norse people believed, then you don't look for a scientific reason for lightning, because it's just Thor banging his hammer. That's it. You might try and placate Thor so he doesn't do that. You might try and cheer him up, but you can't actually work out what it's because you're just thinking it's him. If you thought rain was God crying, you wouldn't look to see what caused rain, because you know that's just God crying. Okay? So lots of pagan beliefs believe that what happened was just the whim of the gods. If you believe that, you don't look for science. So the Jewish faith, and then the Christian faith, was the first one to go, actually there's a lawful God who made a lawful universe, and we can look for those laws. The second thing, it's all well and good to being laws, but we need the ability to discover them. So first of all, we have to have that confidence, I think. You know, sometimes if you're doing maths, and maybe it's not your best subject, if you convince yourself that I can't do this, nearly always you'll end up not doing it, because you don't believe you can do it. Whereas actually, if you're confident, go, no, I can do this, we tend to work better like that. And so God's love for us in the Jewish and Christian faith gives us confidence to believe that we can discover these laws, and that He wants us to discover these laws. Okay? This is probably the hardest bit of the lesson, but there's three things we need to be able to do to be able to work out laws. Okay? We need to be able to observe. Okay? So we need to actually measure and be able to work out what's happening and think, okay? And then when we've observed all these things, I need to be able to think about them. And then I come up with different ideas. And then I need ways of seeing if those ideas are right. Okay? So we try to come up with experiments or whatever. But there's those three stages, okay? I absorb. Okay, so let's say I see a pen falling, I see an apple falling, I see those falling, and then I play around it in my mind. I think maybe the earth draws them all to itself. Okay? And then I try and think of an experiment that tests that. And if that's right, then that means that I'm probably right. If it's wrong, I'm going to go back again. Okay? So there's a process of absorbing, thinking about it, and then checking. And that's true of any subject, whether it's theology, geography, art, whatever. We're trying to learn, we absorb, we think about it, and then we check whether our thinking was right. Okay? That was the hard bit. So, this bit and this bit is physical. I'm relating to the world. I'm looking, I'm measuring. And on this one, I'm measuring my experiment. So that's to do with the physical. The thinking bit's more to do with the spiritual. My mind thinking things through. Okay? So that's all important to help us realise that to understand, for science to work, the religion we believe has to think that the spiritual and the physical are both important. Okay? The spiritual and the physical are both important. So let's have a look at some of the religions in the past. Egyptians. What are Egyptians famous for? What do they do? Go on. They are. I'm sure they did lots of other things, but that's the first thing we always think about. They were brilliant at building pyramids. Okay? And they were brilliant at observing. If you look at the pyramids, they have like holes that point to that star on that particular day. And so their observations were really, really good. Okay? But actually, the Egyptian religion was very, very physical. it worshipped beetles and cats and other animals. Okay? It didn't think in terms of spirit. What were the pyramids? What were they? Oh, the sort of triangle again? Yeah, exactly. And what was their purpose? What were they for?
They were tombs.
Tombs for the pharaohs. Okay? And so they believed the pharaohs go to an afterworld, an underworld. Okay? But they thought such physical terms, because they worshipped animals and stuff, that they put a boat in there so the pharaoh could get to this underworld. Okay? They didn't think, hold on, this is inside a pyramid, this isn't going to help. Okay? They just thought, if he's going to go there across the river, he's going to need a boat. Okay? In fact, they put lots of other things, all the things that the pharaoh would need in the afterlife, they put in the tomb. Unfortunately, that often included his wife. They put his wife in the tomb because he'd need her. Trouble is, she wasn't dead then. But that's a little bit harsh on her, really, wasn't it? Okay? But they would put everything in the pyramid so that he could have his stuff. Because they couldn't think in terms of concept, in terms of what we can't see. I know this might sound quite strange, but actually, if you said to an Egyptian, what's 5 stones and 4 stones, they would know it's 9. It's 9 stones. Okay? But if you said to an Egyptian, what's 5 plus 4, they would have trouble with that. Okay? Can any of you point to 4? Can any of you point to 4? Go on, have a go.
There's 4 in some of the grids.
4 what, sorry?
In some of the grids. And there's a 4 on...
No, that's a symbol. That's a symbol that represents 4. And you know that that's a symbol that represents... And I know, but someone else might not. That's just a symbol. That's not 4. Can you point to 4? Can you point to 4?
There's 4 there.
No, that's a symbol. That sort of thing, you know, we both know that means 4, but that's not 4. It's just a symbol. Can you point to 4?
There's 4 people on that table.
Ah, well, yeah, there is. That's 4 people. They're close, but that's 4 people. Okay? It's not 4. Can you point to 4? No. You can't do it. Does that mean 4 doesn't exist? No. Okay? You can have 4 fingers, 4 people, 4 tables. You can have the symbol 4. You might know that, like what we call 1 and V is a symbol for 4. That's the symbol for 4. Other cultures have different symbols, but it's not 4. Okay? You can't actually point to 4. It doesn't sort of exist in that sense, but it exists. We know it exists. Okay? But if you think about how you were taught sums in the infants, you'd have been first taught 3 apples plus 2 apples, weren't you? It's 5 apples. And then you're encouraged to see that 3 plus 2 equals 5. Okay? And we do it so young, we forget what a big step that is. It's a step from things we can see to the concept that we can't. 3 plus 2. And because the Egyptians didn't have that spiritual sense in their faith, they weren't very good at seeing things they couldn't see about 3 and 2 and 4. They were brilliant with hieroglyphics, weren't they? But actually they were pictures of things. They could never develop that to like an alphabet that we've got, which is abstract. But then once you've learned an alphabet, we have so many words now that the Egyptians didn't. Okay? They even did come up with some letters for the pharaoh's names, but they never thought this would be quite useful for other things. Okay? So their religion couldn't really do science. It could measure, it could build, but it couldn't do the concept stuff like the theory of gravity and the theory of relativity and all those, because it was too physical. Some religions were just too superstitious. Okay? There's the Mayan civilization in South America. Okay? And they were very good at measuring things. Measuring the year is very important. And they got that the cycle was about 365 years. But they had 2 sacred numbers, 13 and 20. And so their most important year was 260 days. Why would their important year be 260 days? If these are their most special numbers. Yeah?
Because 13 times 20 is 200.
Well done. So 13 times 20 is 260. So whatever they saw, they just went, yeah, that's fine. But our superstition tells us that these 2 numbers are sacred. So our important year is 260 days. They also had a year of 365 days. It was a bit complicated. They had 2 years side by side, okay? Because they knew the 365 was about facts, and this was about superstition. But that was the most important one, and that gets in the way when you're being superstitious. Superstition is the enemy of science and of religion. Okay? What about the Greeks? They were very good, weren't they, about science and stuff? Well, they were. And some people, like, have you heard of Archimedes? He was very good. He worked out how you measure the weight of things by putting them in water. Okay? But in the main, the Greeks thought that thinking was really good, but the physical wasn't that important. So they thought they could just think through things and get the right answer. Okay? Plato thought, I can just think through things and I'll get it all right. And actually when I die and I haven't got this physical body anymore, I'll know everything. Okay? No. Aristotle, the guy I was talking about earlier, he said, no, we've still got to observe. We've got to observe and then we've got to think about it. But he didn't think to check. He didn't think to do the experiment. He wrote a book on physics, as I said, 2,400 years ago. And he decided, you might not have done this science yet, that force equals mass times velocity, that's speed. So the force equals how heavy something is, the mass, times by the velocity. It's not bad. For 2,400 years ago, it's not bad, but it's wrong. When you do a bit more science in big school, you'll find out it's force equals mass times by acceleration. Not bad, but wrong. Because he didn't bother checking, he didn't bother finding out. He also believes that what would happen if I had a ball, two balls, and this ball is twice as heavy as this one, and I let them go, what's going to happen? This one is twice as heavy as that one. What's going to happen?
One ball would fall before the other.
Why was that?
Because the gravity is pulling the heavier ball down.
Okay, that's what Aristotle believed. Aristotle believed that the heavier one would fall quicker than the lighter one. Okay? When Galileo did that experiment nearly 2,000 years later, he found that's not true. That they both fall at the same speed. Okay? It's quite difficult to try, but maybe try do a pen and something, but it's happened so quickly it's hard to do it. But so you thought, and it sounds quite reasonable, twice as heavy, twice as quick, but actually it's not. Okay? But he didn't bother to check, whereas you're sensible enough that you would want to check, and we did. Okay? So the Greeks didn't really take off in their science because they forgot to go back to actually what's really happening, they thought. Okay? So all those things mean that we need to believe there's laws, we need to believe that the physical is good, and we need to believe that the spiritual is even better. Okay? Three more little things that we need. Okay? We need scientists to have the freedom to think. Okay? And sometimes the church wasn't so good at that. You got it wrong with Galileo. But so did other religions. Okay? Scientists need the ability to just think it through rather than thinking, what does that mean about God? Okay? Just get on with your science. Right? They also need to be able to get together. Okay? Universities were created by Europe. They got people together. And no scientist can do things by themselves. You need lots of people thinking it together, and I'll have one idea, and you'll improve it a bit, and you'll have an idea, and then we grow together. Okay? And then you need an ability together to develop. And again, I'm not going to go into this now, but Catholicism is the only religion with inbuilt development. Okay? We think about something, and then when we've decided we've got it, we can move on. We don't have to keep going back. Okay? So I've talked a lot there, and I do apologise for that. But what I want to show you is that all those things we need, the laws, the trusting in the physical, the ability to think, the ability to discuss things together, the ability for scientists to just go off and do science, and the trusting to be able to develop, all those things only happened in Christianity. Okay? So again, it's a similar conclusion to the first two lessons, but from a different angle. That when people say to you, God gets in the way of being a scientist, he doesn't. Okay? Our faith in God helps us to be better scientists. It helps us to do the right process where science ignites. Okay? So as a culture and as an individual, we think better if we have a relationship with God. Faith and science complement each other.